Okay, thank you for joining our ENSF 614 group project video. We'll start this off by giving an introduction to each of the team members. This is for group 5. So I'll start. My name is Calvin Geese. I'm the top one in this contribution list. And I mostly worked on building the database out as well as connecting the front end to the back end of our application. And we'll have lots of examples to run through as we get into the program.
Hi, my name is Yuhua Guo. My own contribution to this application is I work on the theater class, showtime, seat, movie, ticket class, as well as I create a theater controller and movie controller, and also connect, make the related method that connect to the DB controller. So now I pass to my partner.
I am Bhavya, and I worked on classes like coupon, payment, email, billing system, registered user, and the related methods in the DB controller, and a little bit of on their integration with the front end. So now I pass to Graydon.
Hi, my name is Graydon Hall. My primary contribution was that I worked and built the front end interface. So what the user uses to interact with our system, and also the controller to interact between the user interface and the back end. So yeah, I worked on the front end primarily, and then also worked on connecting it to the back end based on the rest of my teammates' work. All right, so for section 2 of the video, I'm going to start by discussing how well our UML diagram here matches our actual code. For me, specifically talking about the view package. So in the middle here, you see in the UML, it says GUI application, and then these different views. The way that we modeled this in our code is we have one view class, which is called movie selection view. And it corresponds to the main view. And then it actually encompasses all these different views, but in terms of the different tabs that you see at the top of our GUI there. Here, Calvin, I'll just get you to move the GUI out of the way there. One quick way that our code also differed from this UML is here you see GUI, just one GUI controller. In our code, what we did was I have a movie selection view controller, and that interacts with the view. We also have a view controller itself, and what that does is it acts as an interface that allows the GUI controller, or the movie selection view controller in this case. The view controller gives it a way to talk to all the theater controller, the user controller, the movie controller, and the email controller. So in summary, our code matches quite closely. The only real difference is that the GUI controller also has an added view controller that we use to interact with those, and the main other controllers. And the main reason we did that is it just enabled us to more easily work on different parts of the project at the same time and integrate our stuff better with it.
Yeah, so my main responsibility in this application is I kind of create the theater controller. Within this controller, the main responsibility is just to search theaters by movie and get some theater name and get theater showtime, stuff like that. And I also create a movie controller. Within this controller, we can search all the movies. We can also search the all released movie. We can only search the released movie as well. And we can also search the movie by ID as well in this movie controller. And as you can see from the right-hand side, I'm responsible to design the theater, showtime, seat, and movie class. In terms of the relation of those, my implementation is pretty much match what designing here. So we will use the showtime as a central entity to connect to the theater and connect to the seat, and also the theater can connect to the movie as well. Yeah, so I would say this UML class design is pretty much match what I've been implementing in this application.
Yeah, hi. So I was basically responsible for user controller, email, and if you go on the right-hand side in the model, I was responsible for payment, ordinary user, registered user, coupon, and coupon receipt. Yeah. So if I talk about the deviations that we have from the design as compared to the implementation, I would say we only have two instances of not having the sale entity and the receipt entity, because we didn't end up using them. Whenever a ticket is purchased, we simply send the email to the user. So we didn't need to store it in the database, which would have meant that we are storing redundant information.
So this is Calvin, and as the other guys in the group alluded to, they built out the base work for the model controller and the view. And what my main responsibility was integrating all of these so that they work together, and the front end was able to communicate with the back end. So the primary area where I was working was within the user controller, theater controller, and the movie controller. And we really use these as links between all of the model classes so that we were able to collect all the information that was necessary to display to the front end. And then any responses that we were getting from the front end, we were able to return that information back to the model. So that was my main working, was just building off what the other guys built and then making sure that it was communicating properly between them.
All right, so for the third part of this video presentation, we're just going to list our different requirements. And then after that, we're going to go into actually demonstrating each one. So just as a heads up, all the requirements were met. Requirement number one here was the ability to search for a movie, specify a theater, and look at the show times, and then graphically look at the seats, and then select the one that you wanted to use. Requirement was number two was based on your selection above, making a payment by credit card. Requirement number three was then after that payment had been made, receiving a receipt via email. And we actually have it so that you will get an email from Gmail to the email address that you provide. Requirement number four was making sure that people could only cancel their tickets 72 hours prior to the show. So for example, if I tried to cancel my ticket for a movie that was going to play tomorrow or within 24 hours, I will get an error saying, hey, you can't do that. If I go to cancel a ticket and it is, outside of the allowed window, what you'll do is you'll receive a credit. And then if I'm logged in as a registered user, I won't pay the 15% administration fee. But if I'm not logged in, I will pay the 15% administration fee. And then with the coupon, it's issued to expire within 1 year. We also do have checking to make sure that when someone enters their coupon code, that it isn't expired. Moving on to requirement number five, when registered users should have information such as their name, address, credit card saved in the system's database. And the way that we make sure of that is when someone signs up as a new user, they sign up through a form that makes sure that they have to provide all that information. And then it's all stored in our MySQL database. For requirement number six, the users must pay a $20 annual account fee. And the way that we tackle this is that they have to pay that fee when they sign up. And then on top of that, it's made sure, we double check that they haven't expired. Requirement number eight, registered users can purchase tickets prior to public release. So that just makes, so for example, if the release date for a movie was February 14th, any registered user, when they log in, they'd be able to still see that movie. Whereas a non-registered user or someone who didn't log in, they wouldn't be able to see that movie until after the release date. And then finally, onto requirement number 9, only 10% of these seats can be purchased by registered users on a first come, first served policy. So we just have error checking in there to make sure, for example, if the movie theater has 100 seats, only 10 seats can be purchased by registered users prior to the release date. All right, so now we're going to move on and demonstrate our GUI and actually show how all these requirements are met.
So to show that we've completed each of the requirements, I'm just going to start from the top and go through each of them individually. We have the GUI that we put together on the right-hand side, so we'll be able to walk through the steps along as we go. So the first requirement is to search for movie, theater, showtime, and then see the graphically available seats, and then select seats. To do this, we can select from the dropdown any one of the movies, any one of the theaters, and then the showtimes that are available. Once this pops up, it'll show a grid of seats that are available in a light blue, and grayed out ones are seats that are no longer available since someone else has purchased them already. Then we can then pick the seats that we want to sit in, and we move on to the payment from here. So that takes us to requirement number 2, where we go to the purchase screen and we'll show a credit card example. Coupons or something we'll display later on. So once I've entered all of my information, I can then hit complete payment. And this is an example of error checking that we've done. So the credit card must be 16 digits long. So we'll go and make that fix here. So now that that's corrected, we can go and complete payment. And we get a message saying that it's been successful. So we can go and check our email and we will have our tickets waiting for us. So here's an email summary showing each of the tickets that we've selected, and we're good to go. So now that we've completed the first 3 requirements, we'll move on to the 4th one. And it's a little bit extensive, but we'll walk through it very slowly to make sure that you can see each of the requirements met. So we are going to cancel a ticket and show each of the circumstances where it's within 72 hours, one where it's not within 72 hours, and then we'll do each of those cases as an ordinary user as well as a registered user. That's a lot to take in, so let's start with an example as an ordinary user where I've not logged in. We'll go cancel a ticket, and we'll pull up the email that we just received where we have ticket ID 102. Let's go cancel it. So we go to cancel the ticket and we find it's within 72 hours, so we're not able to. I've already pulled up an example in the database for ticket number 76, and it has a price of $14. We're going to do that one instead. And this time we can see that we are successful. And since there's a 15% admin fee for ordinary users, we can see that the amount is not the full $14, but $11.90 instead. Now we'll go check our email and make sure that we've received the coupon. Perfect. So we can see a nice summary with the coupon code, the amount, and the expiration date on it. So now we've shown the cases for an ordinary user canceling a ticket, and now we're going to show the case where it's a registered user. So we're going to log in. And we can go to the cancel a ticket screen once again. And you can see that it auto-populates with the user's information. For the sake of this example, I'm going to type my own email in so that we can see the results. We hit cancel a ticket and it pops up with the same confirmation screen. We can see the difference on here is that the amount we're receiving is the full $14, whereas an ordinary user only received 85% of it. Let's go check our email and we can see once again the confirmation, the full $14, the expiration date, and the coupon code. So next we'd like to move on to requirements number 5 and 6, where we're going to show the process of registering as a user and having that information update in the database. We'll also touch on requirement 6, as I mentioned, where the $20 account fee is applied as soon as you sign up. So let's jump over to the GUI and I will sign up for an account. Perfect. So we can sign up and we'll go over to the database where I've written an example query beforehand, and we're just going to rerun it now. And we can see that my accounts that I've just created is now showing with the card number updated as well, which links to the payment that's been applied for $20. So the next requirement we're going to move on to is registered users being able to purchase tickets prior to public release. So what I'd like to do is to show the database where we have all of the movies selected. And Anchorman is one that I will select or highlight for you, I suppose, where we see the release date is in the future. And we're going to go ahead and check the drop-down list as an ordinary user where we don't see Anchorman in that list. Now we're going to log in once again. And from the drop-down, we're now going to be able to see Anchorman as well as all other movies that were pre-released. And then we can select our tickets as we've shown before. For requirement number 9, we are going to build off what we just started with requirement number 8, where we've already logged in. And we're just going to show that only 10% of the seats can be purchased by registered users beforehand. So what we'll do is just to prove, we'll buy 1 tickets and we'll go in here with our pre-entered information and we'll complete the payment, which is perfect. The email will be confirmed. And what I do want to show now is trying to buy more than 10% of the movie theater. So this is an example where more than 10 seats out of the 100 seat grid will be selected. When we go to purchase, it's saying maximum 10% has been reserved. You have to reduce the amount to 7. So we can go back and we can adjust our selections to 7 tickets instead, which will be okay. And once again, we can see that the purchase is fine here. Complete the payment, and let's check our email. We should see a bunch of tickets. In this case, we're using the romeo.sosa@ucalgary.ca email, so we won't actually see the emails available to us. What we could have done is gone in and entered our actual email to see the results. So now that we've completed all of the requirements, we just wanted to touch on one item from requirement number 4 for coupons specifically. This is something that we mentioned, but didn't really get into the details of. What I'd like to do is show the functionality of the how it works, and I'll start by logging in just as an easy example. Perfect, we'll log in and select a movie to go and see. Perfect. So we have already an example that was preloaded in there. So we're going to pull up the cost here. We're going to use a coupon code from the database, and we're going to apply this to our ticket. So we can see that the price total was $17.50. The coupon amount is $15. So we need to enter our information, which is just a CVC, since we don't store it in the database. We'll just need to cover that last $2.50. So we'll enter our 1, 2, 3 and complete payment. We will now see the email coming in with a ticket. Perfect. So we'll go check that one out. And there we are, confirmation that we have a ticket for Titanic.
So for this part of the video, we are going to talk about the design patterns that we have implemented in our code. So when you see on the left, we have like our classes distributed into model, controller, and view. So basically, it's the MVC design pattern that we have implemented. Inside the controller classes, we have 3 classes like DB controller, user controller, and email. So for these 3 classes, we don't really need to have multiple instances. So we created the singleton pattern so that only one instance always remains in the memory. And we also for the singleton pattern, we have the private constructor, so that nobody can access this without the proper method like get instance. If you go below, you'll see the get instance method. Yes, static get instance method.
All right, so for this next part of discussing part 4 of our video, we're going to go over some of the error checking. So first, we're going to start by selecting a movie, a theater, and a showtime. We're going to select a seat. We're then going to go to the purchase tab. So if Calvin goes to press complete payment right now, first error checking we see is that a credit card must be a 16-digit integer. So Calvin's going to go ahead and enter that. Perfect. Now we're just going to press complete payment again. And we see that we need CVC to also be a 3-digit integer. After doing that, he's going to press complete payment once more. We see that an invalid date is currently entered, so he can enter a date. If you were to enter something, for example, like ASDF, a really simple string that's clearly not a date, it's not just checking, it's actually checking that it follows the format of year, month, day. So after Calvin enters a valid date here, he's going to enter some nonsense for an email. Sad, and then see that upon completing the payment, an invalid email is entered. So we actually check that it follows a valid email format using a regular expression. So something along the lines of asdf@gmail.com, or what Calvin's typing now, which is his own email. Perfect. And then lastly, cardholder first and last name. If Calvin were to press complete payment now, we'd see that he would get an error because it's null. But if he were to enter his name like he was just doing, now finally the payment will go through. Perfect. Now, if we press the sign-up form, we can go through some similar error checking there. Honestly, there's no need to go through all these fields. The key things to note are that email must be valid like it was on the last screen. Password cannot be null. Address cannot be null. Credit card number still must be a valid 16-digit integer. Card expiry date must be a valid date. First and last name must not be null, and the CVC must be a 3-digit integer. Returning to the main menu, our final bit of error checking is on the cancel ticket page. When we go to cancel a ticket, if Calvin tries to cancel it now, we see that ticket number is missing. Calvin can then go ahead and try and enter a ticket like 999. That's a ticket that we don't have in our database. He can go to cancel it. Oh, but before he does that, we have more error checking for the email. He goes ahead, he enters his email. And now we see that ticket not found with this ID, so a valid ID must be entered. This more or less rounds out the major error checking that we have. Yeah, so on to the next part of part 4, where we'll discuss our use of a database.
Here's our database SQL file. It's basically show how each table was created and how they relate to each other. So for the theater, we just have a primary key theater ID. For the movie table, we have a foreign key theater ID, which is the theater, which is ID that connect to the theater ID. And in the showtime table, we do have the movie ID, theater ID as the foreign key, because in our app design, our showtime is connected to the certain movie and a certain theater. Yeah, in the ticket table, there is a showtime ID that connect to the showtime. So each of showtime should have multiple tickets. And for the coupon, there's no foreign key. Same to the seat. Sorry, can you scroll down a little bit? Yeah. The payment, like those are just like individual entities that not have a foreign key or anything like that. For the register user, it connect to the payment table by the card entity, which is equal to the payment ID in the payment. Yeah, that's pretty much it about our, sorry. Yeah, that's pretty much it for our database. We just have a bunch of insert SQL statement underneath there. Thank you.
Alrighty, so for the final and fifth part of our video, we're going to demonstrate that we've provided reasonable documentation. So starting within our project repo, we go into our docs folder, and then we click on JavaDoc. We click within this folder here, and then we go to our index.html. So what this is based on all the Java documentation that we provided. This is the automatically created documentation. Yeah, so basically, we provided JavaDoc for everything. The only functions that we didn't fully document were anything like a very simple getter and setter, or something that was like a very obvious one-liner, just because we didn't want to add extra lines for stuff that was self-explanatory. So as an example, we go into our model class, or no, sorry, our controller class, and then we go into email. And we see just the standard JavaDoc, for example, our getInstance method, which is, we can see it returns the one and only instance of email, since this is a singleton pattern. And yeah, so the documentation is pretty thorough. Like I say, if Calvin were to go back up one level, just by pressing back there, you can see those are all our classes and the controller, all fully documented. Can quickly click on model. See all those fully documented classes, and lastly, just in the view, there's our movie selection view. So yeah, that basically rounds out our project. Thank you so much for the awesome semester, professor, and to the TAs who obviously worked so hard to make it all happen with the grading. We're just super grateful for the opportunity to be here and learn so much. And yeah, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. So thank you so much.